And a pleasant good evening to you, live here on Beyond the Scoreboard, our weekly podcast series as we reach the midway point, somehow, some way, here in the Western Pennsylvania, all across the state of Pennsylvania, in terms of the high school football season. I'm James Dotson with Eric Thomas alongside yet again as we go beyond the scoreboard each and every week again. And what a big week it was, the most jam-packed week, Eric, in terms of games. And we got to see it from a whole new vantage point on Friday night. All 8 games going around the county with the Red Zone broadcast. I think overall a good success. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.
Yeah, it was good to just watch it from a different vantage point Friday night, get a chance to see a whole bunch of these teams. I think we kind of know what's what and what some of these teams are halfway through the season. I don't know that much is going to change really. Maybe just a couple of places here and there as far as standings go, but I think we're pretty much seeing like who's going to be what here as we hit the halfway point. The games get a little bit tougher here for some teams, but I the separation has started, and for some it's good, and for some it's not going so hot right now.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a little bit more detail. Real quick, just running down the scores from the Friday night games. Elwood City defeating Freedom 28-14. Laurel shutting out Rochester 40-0. Mohawk falling on the road 8-6 against Beaver Falls. More on that one here in a moment. The sort of pseudo history there for Beaver Falls snapping a long losing streak. Neshannock all over Northgate 62-27. Newcastle blanking knock on the road 45-0. Southside coming back 35-7 over Shenango. Union defeated at Needball Stadium at Western Beaver 46-14, and Wilmington on the road 49-13 over Grand Valley, Ohio. I think the one that really sticks out, hats off to ending a multi-season losing streak. I think 15 games in a row is what it was. Beaver Falls snapping it with the 8-6 victory, a 2-point conversion being the literal difference in that one. How many times have we said that for Beaver Falls in the last 3 years?
Yeah, it seems like every time they get into a tight game against one of the teams from the area, it's coming down to that. And that game, Mohawk just really couldn't generate any offense, and Beaver Falls, credit to them, their defense hung tough the whole night, and Mohawk just could never seem to get on track. That team is really struggling right now. They're in a hole, and it's going to be very tough for them to climb out of. I thought they'd be a lot better than what they've been this season, but it's a little surprising to me that they are just kind of as I don't want to use the term lifeless, but come up with a better description for them right now. Their offense just can't seem to move the ball, and they're struggling. They can't score points. They're not running with the efficiency that they have in the past couple of years, and it showed on Friday night. Beaver Falls really had that game in control. It seemed like it was a very physical game, and that kind of surprises me that they were able to out-tough Mohawk in that game, but it's just kind of the way it's going right now, and the point discrepancy for Mohawk is alarming too, James. I mean, they've only scored 64 points the entire season. They're getting beat by an average of almost 22-13, which doesn't seem like a lot, but then when you consider they've only scored 64 points in now 5 games, that's an alarmingly low statistic for a team that we're used to throwing up 40, 30 points a game, it seems like the last couple seasons.
I mean, what's more alarming to me is that, what'd you say, 64 points on the year?
Yeah, 60. They're getting outscored by opponents 64-109.
37 of those points came in week 0.
In one game, yeah. That's just shocking. It's a little bit, you cut it down to the 2 games, and only 8 points separate them in the conference right now. But so it's sort of a tale of 2 sides here, because they're that close to being 2-0 in the conference, and if they were, instead of 1-4, if they were 2-2 or 2-3, they'd be in a lot better shape. 3-2, I guess they'd be in a lot better shape right now and sitting kind of middle of the pack, and you feel a little bit confident about them. But I mean, we're talking potentially about 4 teams coming out of this division, and right now it's Western Beaver, Elwood City, Riverside, believe that or not, and Freedom. And the next best option might end up being New Brighton, which I don't think anybody had at the beginning of the year.
No, and that's, I think, a case in point, and we'll break it down more when we look into this week's games coming up. But I still think those playoff bids are all wide open, because it would not surprise me if a team like Union or Mohawk would get a couple of wins down the stretch against like those New Brightons or Freedoms. And you scrap a couple of wins away there. Union, if they can beat Beaver Falls, for example, then they could be in the driver's seat maybe of getting one of those final spots. I think this conference is still wide open. The question is, will they get 4 bids? Will they get five? I don't think 5 is going to happen, but will they even get 4, depending on how the committee chooses to put things at the end of the year?
Well, and realistically, I mean, you look at Mohawk's remaining schedule, they've got Union, New Brighton, Western Beaver, Freedom, and Riverside. So everything is still pretty much right in front of them. I don't know how competitive they're going to be against Western Beaver, because that Western Beaver defense right now is playing very well, and their running game is just astronomically better than what it's been in recent years. That's a complete flip from what that team was when JV and Peel was there. We talked a lot about that on Friday night during the Red Zone show, but I mean, there's potentially 4 wins there. So, I mean, they could be a 500 team, which might be good enough, especially if they pick off, that'd be 3 teams that are ahead of them in the standings, which would certainly boost their ability to get in the playoffs. But I'm not seeing what I thought I was going to see out of this team right now. And it's a little surprising. Doesn't mean that they can't right the ship, doesn't mean that they can't win out, doesn't mean that they can't get healthy and play their best football at the end of the season, but they're looking up at everybody else right now, and that is very shocking.
It is, and that'll be a big. I don't want to call it a casket game this early in the year, but essentially between Union and Mohawk, I think the winner still has a great chance with a lot in front of them to play for. But the loser on Friday night could be in trouble of being on the outside looking in. On the flip side of it, let's stick with the 2A in that MAC conference there, Eric. Let's look at Elwood City. A touchdown in each quarter, 28-14. And this is, I think, what we've been waiting for the Elwood City offense to really explode. Actually over 400 yards of total offense in the game for the Wolverines. Tyler Smiley throws for 3 touchdowns. Dom Hogue, a couple of long touchdowns. Daylon Curie with the tip drill, the acrobatic touchdown for his lone catch of the game. But I think overall, showing that Elwood City can do it in a multitude of fashions. This is the kind of a balance that we saw a lot last year when Elwood was at its prime. If they can continue this for a couple of more weeks, they still got some big games ahead of them, obviously, too. But, they're in much better shape starting conference play at 2-0.
Yeah, and remember, they're only 6 points away themselves from being a 4-win team. That loss to Neshannock was only 26-20. So, they got some winnable situations coming up for them too. I mean, that game at the end of the year against Beaver Falls, how big does that get now that
Right.
Beaver Falls was able to pick off Mohawk on Friday night? Because we don't know what that's going to do for that Beaver Falls team. Maybe they've now, maybe they hit a little bit of a stride themselves. But we said it earlier last week during the show about the back end of Elwood Cities, and that was kind of the theme going into last week, is the back end of some of these schedules was going to be lighter for some teams, and Elwood City is one of them. And it's also lighter for Mohawk. Now, both have to play Western Beaver coming up, but they have very winnable games here coming up down the stretch. If they can just continue to play with some confidence and move the football like they are and get what they're getting out of Travis Smiley, who's looked really efficient the last couple of weeks, this team, with the way their defense is playing, I think that they can potentially now, I don't want to go nuts, but I mean, they have the ability to win out. They could be an 8-win team this year, which again, I don't know that anybody would have had that on their bingo card before the season started.
I don't think anybody outside of Elwood City would have considered that, but that again shows you what Coach Bradley and that crew has been able to do to that community and to that program. Shout out to Richard Curtin as well. How about him as a bell cow? 25 carries for $134 and a touchdown there on the ground for Elwood City. The other team, Union, you mentioned it as their offensive woes. Again, I think chipping away, getting a little bit better. 46-14. In all honesty, that score is slightly deceiving too, because you mentioned the Western Beaver ground game. They really didn't run the ball very well on design runs. About, I would say, 90% of their rushing yards came on broken plays or scrambles. So again, the defense, I was actually pretty impressed for the most part. I know 46 points, it doesn't sound that way, but the Union defense actually, did a lot of job management. It was kind of a couple of busted plays that just went against them for huge gains throughout the course of the game. In the end, though, it's a loss, and that's all that really matters. But I will say at least Union maybe pushing, again, slightly in the right direction with that young team.
Yeah, they could be. I just my concern with them is that they just have to keep it a little more low scoring. I mean, they've all 4 games they've lost, or 3 games they've lost, they've been in the opponent's been in the 40s. So if you can run away from them, they're not gonna be able to play catch up, and that's been the theme with them really the last 2 seasons. So
Mhm.
for them to be competitive going down the stretch, they have to. It's got to be like the Riverside game where it's a 9-7, a 2 point game. They can put themselves in a position maybe for a field goal to win the game, something like that. Again, winnable games down the stretch. They get Elwood City though, so it's going to be tough. And I do think that Friday's game with Mohawk is, as you called it, a casket game for both teams. I think the loser's done. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm just going to point blank say it. The loser of that game is not going to the playoffs this season. And you want to see these two teams play with a sense of urgency. I'm not sure they can give us the kind of game they gave us a couple years ago when it came down to the last play of the game, but in the fireworks and the big offense and everything. But I certainly think that they can slug this out, and this could be like another low scoring game that Union will be able to hang around in.
Monte Booker, a touchdown run, a kickoff return for touchdown for Johnny Million for the 2 Union scores in that contest. I want to give a shout out real quick to Milwaukee's Lucas Stratton, by the way, scored a lone touchdown in that game. That is his first career touchdown for the Red and Black. Let's jump down to Class 1A. Laurel did what we expected them to do, 40-0. That was the score at halftime against Rochester. Shortened quarters in the second half, so that was the final. I think it was only one possession each in the third and fourth quarter of that game with a rolling clock. But Laurel just doing what they need to do, Eric. And again, I'm kind of impressed with what they've done on the defense and special teams as much as anything. We got a blocked punt now for the second straight week. We had a pick six yet again in the game against Rochester as well from Lewis Wire. So I that's what I'm most impressed with. The offense is what we were going to be talking about, but it's the defense that's really starting to make a name for itself this year.
Yeah, it is, and they bounced back pretty nicely in that game last week. That was a tough game against Canada, a team that they might have to go through somewhere down the line in late October, November. But this Laurel team did what it had to do. Rochester is not on the level that they were a couple of years ago. We all know that, but the Laurel impressively. I mean, they've scored at least 28 points in every game. So I mean that their offense, and that's again with really doing it without kind of exploding or having to take over a game yet. I mean, they've been so good at winning games, like in all three phases of it, with defense, with special teams, with maybe it's the running game one night, maybe it is Santini's arm, maybe it's special teams, whatever. I mean, they seem to put the whole puzzle together, and they get a very winnable stretch on their schedule coming up here too. I mean, their two toughest games are at the end of the year against Southside and the Shannoks. I mean, they might be able to get on a little bit of a run here the next couple of weeks and win maybe three more. I know the rival with Shenango is going to be an emotionally charged game coming up in a couple of weeks, but Northgate has looked okay, but they just haven't been able to stop teams. And I mean, Shenango hung 56 on them a couple of weeks ago. Summit Academy can't get out of its own way. And then we'll see what Shenango is. I mean, we'll talk about them here in a minute, but we'll see what they are coming up here in 3 weeks because if they can come back themselves, they're a little banged up right now, and their pride got a little wounded on Friday at Southside. But if they can bounce back nicely, maybe they knock off Neshannock, who knows? But that could be a really, really important game for both teams that are coming up on October 10th. And then, of course, you got the two finales at the end of the year, which might decide the conference. But long way to go yet. But I just still think we haven't seen the best of that Laurel offense, and I'm not 100% sure that we're going to get a game where they have to fully take over because they're just so well balanced.
Well, when the defense has scored points literally in every game, 2 games they've gotten a safety, they have a kick return for a touchdown, they have a blocked punt return for a touchdown, and a pick six last week. So they have literally done scoring in all three phases, like you said, and it takes the pressure off the offense there for sure in that as well. Santini, by the way, throwing for 2 touchdowns in the game last week. Nathan Hill rushing for a touchdown. Or actually, I'm sorry, Santini rushing for 1, Nathan Hill rushing for 2 more in the game this past week. You mentioned Shenango. Let's talk about them making the trip to Hookstown. They're the team that got on the board first against Southside, 7-0 there early in the second quarter. But Southside able to, I mean, the typical Rams football, wearing you down over the course of a game. 2 players over 100 yards rushing in the contest. Just really wore them down in the second half, and we're able to take the 35-7 victory. Again, impressed with the start, But it's unfortunately what you see with Shenango, what you see with Union these last couple of years, especially just unable to grind out for a full 4 quarters. Part of that just due to the fact of the number of bodies that they have on the field relative to most of their oppositions.
Yeah, and I'm not terribly or too surprised by that outcome. I mean, look, this Shenango team, they have to take advantage of what they can take advantage of. Simple as that. And they're a little bit limited right now. It's not because Caleb McConnell isn't going to be a good quarterback. He just doesn't have the experience right now. So I mean, you're asking him to shoulder the load for a team and run the offense. I mean, he does so much for them. He's the starting quarterback. He's the starting free safety. He's the return man. He punts. He kicks extra points. Like, you're putting a lot on that kid's shoulders, and he's answered the challenge to do so incredibly here the last few weeks. But it's still a lot for him, and it's still a lot for that schedule to face it down and know that you have to make a play somewhere along the line if you want to beat one of these really good teams. Now, I think that they're going to play up to the level of Neshannock on Friday night. How long they can do that, I don't know. And they've got to be careful in that game because, as we know, Neshannock can just, when they get rolling downhill, they can really put a hurt on you quick, as we saw last Friday night. But I think they'll play up to the level of their opponents. They have a brutal schedule the last month. I mean, you go from September 26th to October 25th, and they've gotten Neshannock, Laurel, and Fort Cherry in 3 of those 5 weeks. I mean, that is brutal for them. But if they want to be good and they want to get to a certain level, and players want to excel and themselves get to another level, you've got to beat these teams. You got to face these teams. You got to take your medicine. You got to learn from it. And you got to go try to win these games. And I definitely think they'll play hard in every single one of them.
Yeah, you mentioned it with just the fact you almost forget that, yeah, he's a freshman doing everything, Caleb McConnell, for this team, especially when you look at the plays that he's made. I mean, even that touchdown to Albertini against Southside. I mean, rolling out against his body, gets the hips turned and able to thread the needle into decently tight coverage for the touchdown. It is impressive, but you got to remember, yes, he is a freshman. You're going to have mistakes. Couple of interceptions last week. He's going to only get better too, which is, I think, for opposition is going to be a little bit scary. Just hope that, again, like any 1A, 2A team with a small roster, especially, got to stay healthy, and hopefully they will continue to do so, because I do think that this team, not only this year, but in the next couple of years with McConnell running the helm, could have some very, very special things going. But you mentioned Neshannock. Let's talk about them with that 62-point onslaught there against Northgate. And even most impressive, doing it with your backup quarterback in the entire game, with Nico Mador taking all snaps behind center. Gino Mazzocco out with an illness, was on the sideline in street clothes. He's good to go for this coming week. But watch out. We got a quarterback controversy there after Mador puts up 200 yards and 4 touchdowns.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Nico, I know that they really like him,
Mm-hmm.
and they really have been wanting to get him on the field to do a lot for this team. There's definitely a role for him. It's not going to be the starting quarterback, though. I mean, I hate to tell him that, but I think that job is pretty well sealed up. But this team, just I think that they are starting to play some of their best football, and that's going to be a little bit dangerous for everybody else. They are a team that thrives on, they get the snowball effect going, and that really gets them in a way that maybe not other teams sort of understand. I mean, when they are getting downhill, when they're going downhill, they're virtually impossible to stop. I mean, their offense clicks so well. They have so many weapons that could beat you, and they just, I mean, I don't know. They're hitting their stride. Remains to be seen just how good they're going to be, but because again, they have everything right in front of them too with the last couple of weeks. But they are a team that I'm keeping a big time eye on right now, because they are starting to put together a string that that might carry them. They might peak just at the right time, which is something that they've needed to do the last couple of years, and they just haven't been able to find it at the right time. And it might seem like this year they finally have gotten their they've kind of matched up the right time to peak here in the next couple of weeks. We'll see what happens with them.
4 touchdowns to 4 different receivers, Ethan Beeman, Ryan Cameron. That was an 83-yard beautiful bomb to Cameron. And then the running backs, Anthony Eakin and Justin Edward, each catching a touchdown They each ran for touchdowns as well, Eakin with 150 yards and 3 scores in that game. Any concern with the fact that they allowed 27 points to Northgate?
No, because that Northgate team has thrived off
Mhm.
garbage time points. So I put no stock in that. I'm sure Mike Bongivengo is not going to be happy about that. Haven't really had a chance. I talked to him a little bit last night, but haven't really had the chance to kind of pick his brain on that. I'm sure that's going to stand out to him, and he's not going to be
Mhm.
thrilled with it. But no, because Northgate, if you look at what they've done all year, James, most of their yardage, most of their stats have come in garbage time. So I don't think there's any issue with that.
The Shannock Shenango will be the game we'll be talking about here for this coming Friday night. We'll get to that in a moment. The other two games from this past Friday, Wilmington in one last non-conference clash. They threw one pass in this game, but it did go for a touchdown. Rowan Miller to Freddie Zettner. 49-13 the final score. I think still the most impressive part of this game was watching a Chase Mitchell-Tree 98-yard interception return, not for a touchdown. Intercepted it at the one, was tackled at the other one, punched it in a couple of plays later. But my goodness, it's that the defense that I think is going to be the stronghold that Wilmington needs to focus on throughout the course of the year, because they're going to shorten games, they're going to ground and pound. It's whether or not the defense can make plays like that. That's going to be their biggest key throughout the rest of their regular season.
Yeah, I agree with you. And we talked a little bit about, what some of these teams are, is what we're seeing from them. They're a team that I mean, we know what they are. We knew what they were anyway. We knew that they were going to be a power run team. We knew that they were not really going to throw the ball that well or throw that ball that much. They can throw it well. They just don't, they choose to not have to do it that much. But this is a team that I do not believe we've seen their best yet. And maybe that comes on Friday night. That's obviously the game of the week as far as our teams go, and maybe the game of the week in District 10 too. But they're putting together a string of great games. They are playing very solid football. They're running the ball. Their defense is on point. They are not missing assignments. They are not missing guys that go out with injuries. They're not taking any risky, chances or anything like that. They're just going out there and pounding teams, and it makes it fun to watch. They're about as balanced of a run-oriented team that you can possibly find. I think it's crazy to say that, but when you watch them, they feel and look and play so balanced, and they're a one-dimensional team for the most part.
Yeah, Cam Kettering, 10 carries. Chase Mitchell-Tree, 8 carries. Rowan Miller, 5 carries. Freddie Z with 3 carries. Just everybody getting the hand on the football throughout the course. And that's not just that game. It's been that way every game. Mitchell-Tree last game with 15, Rowan Miller with 10, the Ketterings with 8 and 7 each. So, yeah, that's the way they're designed. That's the way the wing tee should run, and they run it about as well as anybody you'll see in the Commonwealth. Real quick for Newcastle, 5th game of the year, 4th shutout of the year, a 45-0 win against Knock. Spoiler alert, don't think we're going to be seeing any shutouts this coming week against Aliquippa. However, we're going to be seeing what I expect to be a pretty exciting and fun game. Quip's coming off of a win where they won literally in the final play of the game, and Newcastle coming off of by far their best offensive onslaught. How about Marino Graham with over 330 total yards of offense and 4 total touchdowns?
Yeah, and we said it early in the year is they didn't ask him to do a ton in that opener against Penn Hills. They asked him to go win the game. Basically, they asked him to go lead a drive down the field late in the game or early in the second half. So it's in the second half of the game, but he goes and he does that, and the defense takes care of the rest. And we said it back around week 1. It might have been week 2 that if they can play defense and they can run the football successfully, they are going to hurt teams and they're going to win games. And they've done exactly that ever since that point. Their defense has been great outside of the Hopewell game. Their running game has been awesome outside of the Penn Hills game. This is a different team than Aliquippa saw a season ago. I think this is a much more focused team. I'm not saying that Newcastle is going to win the game. I still think that they'd be an underdog in this game. But I also don't think that these guys really care who's on the other side. I don't think they're going to get afraid of the fact that it's Aliquippa. I mean, I don't like the math in sports, like this team beat this team, so they might be better, that kind of thing. But you look at what Penn Hills did last week with Aliquippa, and we watched that entire game while we were on the air. And then after we got off, we watched the end of it, which took about 45 minutes, the last like 9 minutes of game time. And Penn Hills should have won that game. They pushed Aliquippa to the absolute brink until they scored a touchdown with no time left on the clock. And Newcastle sitting back, and they're probably watching that game thinking to themselves, we pounded this team in week 0. I mean, that game, and Penn Hill still isn't 100% healthy. They're much more healthy than what they were against Newcastle. But that game never, ever felt, outside of maybe the first drive of the game by Penn Hills, like Newcastle was going to lose it. They dominated that game, even though it was 12-7 or 12. Like the final was 12-7 or 12-0.
12-0, yeah.
They dominated that game the whole way through. And really, I don't think we're ever threatened to lose that game. And then they watch that and they say, hey, this team pushed Aliquippa to the brink. We're better than them. We have to feel pretty good about our chances. I think they feel, remember last year, if I'm not mistaken, the games reversed last year. They play Aliquippa after Montour last year.
No, it was the same order. They played
the same as it was. Yeah. So they came off of the Aliquippa game, had to go on the road to Montour, and then everything just kind of went wrong. They had the injuries late in the game.
Mm-hmm.
They got just taken apart by a really good Montour team. This team, to me, has more fight than that. This team has like this ability to analyze what's going on, and they got a kid at quarterback right now who he doesn't care what the situation is. Like, he's never gone through this, so everything to him is going to be new, and so far everything he's had to meet head on, he's taken the challenge, he's accepted it. And this program's got to feel really good about where it's at right now. I don't know that they win Friday night. In fact, I would probably, if you asked me for a pick, I would probably still pick Aliquippa. This isn't the same Aliquippa team that we've seen the last 4 or 5 years. This isn't the same Newcastle team that we've seen the last couple of years either. So something's maybe in the works here. They can lose this game on Friday night, look good doing it, and feel a hell of a lot better where they're at, even after a loss. There could be such a thing as a good loss in this type of game on Friday night.
They're going to face adversity on Friday night. It's how they respond to it that's going to be the biggest one for me. But responding both within the game and then leading up to the upcoming games. I think that's what's going to be the big key. We'll just break that down a little bit more here coming up in the second half of the show. But want to give a shout out. Marino Graham, again, 221 yards rushing and a touchdown. But Jermaine Walker, Roderick Proctor, and Maurice Moore Jr., all with touchdown runs in the game as well. The running game getting going a little bit for the Canes. Definitely going to be instrumental against Aliquippa and throughout the Parkway Conference, which that will begin on Friday night. All the other conferences in full action so far in terms of conference play, but we'll break down not only the games coming up on Friday night, but we'll also look at the midway statistical leaders across Lawrence County when we return on the Beyond the Scoreboard podcast here at LC SportsNet, powered by LCAP.
Thank you for calling Axe. Where can we take you today?
To work, to the store, to Grandma's house. Axe can get you there, but it's much more than a ride. It's a joyride.
I'm helping people. I'm getting them out of their house. I'm taking them to their doctors, to the grocery store.
They say I'm entertaining. Okay, we laugh, we joke, we sing, we tell stories.
They're like family to us.
Even if it's the same day, to schedule your joyride, call Axe today.
Having a safe and healthy home is not something to play games with, especially if your home was built before 1978. You may be exposed to extremely harmful lead-based paint hazards. If you're concerned about lead in your home, don't roll the dice on your family's safety. LCAP's Healthy Homes Lead Hazard Reduction Program is here to help you win the battle. Your family's health and safety is the goal. Contact the Department of Healthy Homes today.
Nominations are now being accepted for the LCAP Team of the Month and the LGKG Male and Female Athlete of the Month. Log on to lcsportsnet.com/awards to nominate your favorite team or athlete today. Calling all sports fans. Never miss a moment with real-time alerts, keeping you in the loop when your favorite teams are playing.
Get instant updates sent straight to your phone with game schedules, changes, and all the latest news.
You can receive important updates and reminders, so you're always prepared for game time.
Be the first to cheer on your local teams and show your support.
Receive important updates and reminders so you're always prepared for the game.
Signing up is quick and easy. Don't miss out. Sign up now and stay connected to the action.
Plus, follow us on social media for live updates, behind-the-scenes content, and community news.
Sixth-week preview show here on the Beyond the Scoreboard podcast with Eric Thomas. I'm James Dotson. We got volleyball going on this week, band festival going on Wednesday here, and then again 2 more games coming up on Friday night. And stay tuned with all the weather. We'll say this: we're recording this early in the day. It'll be going out on Wednesday night, and by the time that happens, we hope we're still at the band festival, although they may have to invoke the rain date. So we'll see how that all plays out. But hopefully we'll see you all at Taggart. If not here on Wednesday the 24th, maybe on Wednesday the first day of October. But before we get going into our previews for the Friday night games, Eric, let's take a look at some of the statistical leaders across Lawrence County. As we've hit the midway point, we might as well take a stab at all of these stats. Now, first, I will say these stats are unofficial. It's all based off of the numbers that the teams have posted on their max preps and on what the official stats they send us at the end of a game. So it's very possible, and we've seen it before, where the stats that we get on a Friday night end up getting adjusted in their team's official stats, but then they don't get adjusted because they weren't sent to us. Yada, yada, blah, blah. These are the roundabout numbers. We'll start with the passing numbers. Bobby Fadden leading the county with 575 passing yards, but only 2 passing touchdowns on the year. Marino Graham, the freshman, as the number 2 thrower. Santini, surprising to me, as only the number 3 thrower, but I think what's most impressive with his numbers, Eric, 7 touchdowns, just 1 interception. Any big surprises on the passing numbers as far as you're concerned?
No, because Luca's also got the benefit of a really good run game and more weapons too. I think Mohawk's biggest issue outside of the Cash Stratton injury, so the number 1 running back's not there, is just their depth. I mean, they didn't have a lot of running backs to begin with. I mean, you remember last year they had 3 guys that ran for 600 or 400 yards, but each with Fadden, with Sam List, and then with Stratton, and they just don't have that this year, and that's really shown in Fadden's performances. He is. He's still giving his team a chance to win, and he still represents the best player on the field when he's there on the field offensively, but they just are not, the offense just isn't in sync without that running game. I mean, we've talked so much about the history with Jay Rona and what Fadden did his first year as a starting quarterback. That team's a running team, flat out, and they just have not been able to run the ball with the same effectiveness this year because of injuries, and that's carrying over to the quarterback performance too. It really comes down to Bobby Fadden's right arm.
Interestingly enough, the receiving leader is Joey Nail of Mohawk, which feels, again, interesting only to me because every game it feels like, I want to see Joey Nail get more involved. I want to see him touch the ball more. He's got 18 catches for 286 yards on the year. Only Dom Hogue has more receptions for Elwood City. He had 8 catches last week now for 281 yards. Colton Carlson, Kai Cox, Landon Albertini rounding out the top 5 in terms of receiving yards. But again, a lot of the usual suspects, but also a couple of newcomers in there, especially with Kai Cox first year playing football and Landon Albertini back after a couple of years of being in and out with injury.
Yeah, and that's kind of been an underlying story this year too, is the guys that have come back from injuries too, like Albertini, Nathan Hill, all these guys that weren't able to give it their all, last year, either for a chunk of the season or all the season, and they've all come back with a vengeance here this year too. It's made the games really interesting. It's made the future schedule very interesting. But yeah, I'm not terribly surprised at a lot of these numbers at all. I mean, I in the sense of getting back to Mohawk real quick, like in the sense of Fadden not having more touchdowns, yeah, that's a little surprising. But again, I think that just goes down to the running game, and mostly everybody else has been able to stay healthy. I mean, I know Shenango's a little banged up coming into the game on Friday night against the Shannock, but other than that, everybody seems like they're healthy outside of Mohawk, and it's kind of showing when you look at some of the numbers.
Rushing wise, Chase Mitchelltree leading the county. That's no surprise there. Marino Graham averaging 10 yards per carry. He's got 440 yards on the year. Anthony Aiken just over 400 yards. Another Wilmington back in Kel Kettering, Richard Curtin rounding out the top 5. You have actually 4 Wilmington players in the top 8 rushers in the county. That's incredible with both Kettering's Rowan Miller and Chase Mitchelltree. Just again shows you what they can do. But here's the devilish number out there. Chase Mitchelltree, 666 rushing yards at the midway point. Oh, by the way, he's got 11 total touchdowns, so that's 66 total points scored on the year as well for the Wilmington back.
Not going to take long. That's going to change real quick on Friday night.
Hope so for Wilmington. And you mentioned Nathan Hill and what he's doing. He's actually outside of the top 15 in terms of rushing yards, but he's number 2 in the county in terms of total points scored. 7 touchdowns on the year, only behind Chase Mitchelltree. So getting it done, not with, the bulk plays, not getting, the 10, 12, 15 yarders, but getting, the small doses and the ground and pound red zone style opportunities, and he's cashing in on them.
Yeah, but I still think he's looked really good though when he's run the football.
For sure.
His numbers are a bit of an anomaly because if you've watched Laurel this season, again, you saw the workload get more and more as heavy as the weeks were going on, and it's also a case of they don't have to put too much on his plate either because they have so many other weapons that they can go to, and they can kind of ease him in the game. But you watch, though, the last couple games of the season, he's going to be a 20-carry guy. I can almost guarantee they're going to feed him a lot. And we got to look at that a couple weeks ago when we saw them, the last time we saw them, where, I think he had 17 carries in their game a couple weeks ago and just looked fresh. And, he was better on carry 17 than he was on 16, than he was on 15. Than he was on 14. I think he only had 1 minus rushing attempt in that entire game. Just was running with a head of steam, looked confident, like he trusted his knee, like he wasn't afraid of it or anything like that. When it comes down to it, James, he is going to be a 20-carry guy if they need him to be against Southside and Neshannock. I can almost guarantee that.
A little love for the kicking game. Ryder Turbo, 24 of 25 on extra points. Maya Jarrett, 19 of 23. Mari Rapchak, 17 of 21, so 3 really strong kickers there. Caleb McConnell's 11 of 13. Aiden Huth is 14 of 15. Field goal-wise, Andrew Lloyd's made 4 of his 5, and Caleb McConnell and Tony Guyowitz have each made a field goal on the year as well. So some shout-out to the kickers because especially teams like Wilmington, Laurel, and Neshannock, they're putting up the points. Well, you want that extra point is clutch too. You miss too many of them, and you start putting yourself in peril. They're taking the advantage and they're booting it through the uprights pretty much every time. So big shout out to those guys and young ladies doing their job with the boot. Let's take a look at our next job, Eric, looking at the games going on this Friday across Lawrence County. And yes, I had to confirm, but all games are on Friday night. Let's start with that big one at Taggart Stadium. Let's talk about that Newcastle team a little bit more against the Quips. Because you were talking with me, during the Red Zone broadcast. This Aliquippa team is not the Quips team we've seen the last couple of years. In some ways, they're still kind of trying to find what their true identity actually is, and maybe something clicked late in that game. Maybe they're going to be riding on a high now. Maybe that's going to be something that they're going to have momentum, or that might be something that they could have a hangover for after getting the big last-second win there at Heinz Field.
Yeah, and that's going to be that's a key point there about them because they're starting to play some really good football. They're now getting some statewide recognition in the rankings. Penn Live has them still as an honorable mention team. Waiting to see them kind of break out a little bit, and maybe they'll get a little bit more love the next couple of games. Who knows? But to me, what we haven't seen this Aliquippa team do yet this season is how to handle something huge that goes their way. They've won games. They've won 3 games. We know that. They didn't lose, they got destroyed by Avonworth. They come back off of that. They win a game. That's key. But they were held scoreless again in the first half last Friday. And then they kind of all of a sudden explode in the last 8 minutes of the game against Penn Hills, and they win it on the last play of the game. So how does that carry over? What's that carryover effect? Because their carryover so far has been not great football. it's they've done enough to win games, but they haven't looked like they're ready to break out just yet. And maybe the end of that game is the start of that. And maybe the end of that is them reading a little bit too much about themselves or feeling a little bit too good about themselves. I don't think Mike Warfield's going to let them feel that way, though. And I think they also understand what's ahead of them. And 4A has become, I mean, it's just, there's landmines everywhere now. 4A actually has kind of become like the deepest class, I think, in the WPIL, which is sort of scary. But they know that they have to go out there and put on a performance that their faithful looks at and goes, yeah, that's the team that we thought we were going to have. Now, they don't have Tyke Hayes. Their running game hasn't been great. Their passing game hasn't been great. Marquise Council's done a yeoman's work as a quarterback, but it's not where it was a couple years ago with Cheese Good and some of the guys they've had there. Their offensive line has been somewhat rebuilt, retooled. Their defense is still really good. It's maybe not as aggressive as it was when they were winning state titles a couple years ago, but it's still good. And that's where I think Newcastle has to be a little bit careful in this game, because you might mess around with them a little bit early in this game, and you might hang around and, kind of have like that alligator blood type thing where you're hanging around, if you get the reference. But then all of a sudden they're going to come up with a play at the end of the game. And they showed that last week. And that would scare me a little bit if I was anybody playing them. They can they carry that late game thing over if they get into another tight game, because now they've been in one and Newcastle has it. And I think that's a big difference. I really think that's a big difference in this game, because I'm trusting Mike Warfield to make sure that team's ready to go and not have any kind of hangover.
Here, I thought you were going with John Malkovich and Rounders. Hanging around.
The Russian accent's not working that great tonight.
No.
I do have some Oreos downstairs, though.
That's a good call right there. Young fans listening out there, definitely a classic to check out at some point. Young Matt Damon and John Malkovich there in Rounders. Making our rounds across the county. Let's head up north now to the other huge game, one of the biggest ones across the entire western side of the state for sure. Wilmington hosting Farrell. Homecoming there at Terry Varelli Stadium. And it's the first game in region play for the Greyhounds. Farrell's already got one game under their belt in terms of region play. Again, it's 2A versus 1A, the mixed regions up there in D10. Farrell is Farrell is Farrell. You know what they're going to have. You got Ant Pegues, who's really developing as a strong quarterback. Jules Johnson, just absolutely incredible running back as well. This is going to be by far the biggest challenge that the Hounds have had to go through so far this year.
Yeah, it is. But I also think that they have the kind of game that can annoy Farrell. And I'm not sure that this isn't going to be a low-scoring game. This kind of has like a 16-13 style game to me written all over it. And the one thing about Farrell that I'll say that I've been really impressed with them, and this goes back to when they played Bishop Guilfoyle for the state title a few years ago. They love to get ugly with teams. Mm-hmm. They don't care if you want to put them on the field and get into like a 7-6 ball game. They kind of, I don't know, they sort of like thrive on that a little bit, I think. And that can be a little bit dangerous if you're low scoring. The key for Wilmington in this game is you can't get frustrated if it's not really going your way. If you go a couple 3-and-outs early in the game, but you hold Farrell, you can't really get like too caught up in the fact that you haven't scored. Just keep playing your game, wear them down, try to wear them down up front, try to pound the football as much as you can, throw all the different guys at them that you can. And then this might be the game where they hit something over the top in the passing game. Maybe we see about 4 or 5 passes from them and try to loosen that Farrell defense up with a little play action, catch them sleeping. Brandon Fillion will have something in the book for him. He'll be ready to go. It's a 50-50 game. I can't really make a pick on it, but it's 50-50. I think Wilmington's just a shade better, but that might be because their running game is so good, and I trust running games in games like this where you might have to grind it out. At the same time, I think that they could also get bitten by Farrell's big playability. Farrell can run the hell out of the ball too. I mean, they're a really good running football team too, and their offensive line's nice. So this to me's got kind of grinded out, low scoring, 16-13, 2017 style game to it.
And again, Farrell's had a couple of games like that, a 13-12 win against Hickory to start the year being one of them. But you want to talk about strength on strength. Wilmington averaging over 300 rushing yards per game. Last week, Sharon, a pretty strong Sharon team, rushed for negative 31 yards against Farrell in the game. So strong rushing defense these last couple of games for sure for Farrell, because you could run on them early in the year. The first couple of games, they gave up a good chunk of rushing yards, not nearly as much the last two games. Negative 26 yards in the game prior to that against Mercer as well. So keep that in mind as you're looking at strength on strength. The running game, winning the trenches, bigger than ever in that game between the Hounds and the Steelers. We'll have coverage of that one with the News Talk 790 crew. Mark Slazak, Bob Greenberg will be on the call, and we'll have the video coverage to go along with it here at lcsportsnet.com. The other game, we'll have a full broadcast crew. We'll be at Glenn Pop Johnson Stadium at Shenango High School as the Cats host Shenango, big Class 1A, Big 7 conference matchup going on here. And I think for both teams, it's forgetting the previous week, and for two different reasons. Neshannock, you just put up 60 against Northgate. This is going to be a better team than Northgate, a team that's going to play a lot better defense than what you saw from the Flames. On the Shenango end, you just had a tough road loss, probably a little banged up, hoping to be healthy, and everybody should be good to go for Friday night, but need to forget that one and go and take on your local rival that you've struggled with in recent memory.
Yeah, and this is going to be a really important game for Shenango. You know, we said about how Newcastle could play that game on Friday against Aliquippa and have, you know, quote unquote, a bad loss. They also could benefit from something like that too. I think the key for Shenango in this game is they got to try to outmuscle Neshannock, because some of the teams that have gotten physical with them in the past, Beaver Falls, for example, a couple of years ago in the WPIL playoffs, you know, they've really been able to frustrate them, and you can't let them explode, but if they can be physical with them and hang with them, you know, I don't know if this is a game where they got to try to cut Caleb McConnell loose and get more out of the passing game. They certainly have the tools. Now, the other big factor is going to be their health, because we don't know exactly who's going to be where. They've been some shifting around on the offensive line the last couple of weeks from the last time we saw them against Northgate. So we'll see. But, you know, they got hit a little bit last week. I think that they are pretty much a house money team. So if it goes well for them and they win, great. If it doesn't, they move on and they try to win the next week. I don't think anything is really, you know, oh my goodness, this is like a must-win situation. We have to win this game. And I think they're going to play up to the level of competition too. I think they will play up to Neshannock's level in this game on Friday night. And I think they'll hang around. I really do think that they will hang around for a lot longer than we would have thought maybe 5 weeks ago.
On the other side for Neshannock, for me, I want to see their defense take the next step, because they've allowed at least 3 touchdowns in each game on the year. And again, you mentioned a couple garbage time touchdowns last week against Northgate, but you know that's something that's on the bulletin board there for Coach Bonjavingo and company, is that defense needs to, you know, take it another notch up, because I think they're probably thinking we've had a few too many scores allowed here in these games.
Yeah, and that's got to feel uncomfortable for him too. I want to see how Gino Mazzocco is, because now it's been 2 weeks since he played. Remember that, because they were off against Rochester, and then he did not play last week. So,
and he was banged up in that Elwood City game even before that too, Eric.
So let's see what he comes back and does, because if he's fresh and he's able to, you know, to do what he can do, then this offense is really going to take off. You know, the one thing that they'll have in this game for sure, this is a game where Shenango's got the physicality and a little bit of speed, but not as much as Neshannock does. Neshannock's got one of the fastest kids in the WPIL on Anthony Eakin. So you got to watch out for their speed. They love to hit the home run pass. Maybe they come out and try to get Gino on track and throw a deep one, try to break up Shenango a little bit early and, you know, get them off cadence a little bit early. I expect that their pressure is going to be amped up. I think they would want to be in Caleb McConnell's face and get after him a lot. And if they can withstand, if their offensive line can withstand that and give him time to delegate the ball and, get the running game going and all that, that works to Shenango's advantage a little bit in this game. But you just got to watch that big play. And I wouldn't be stunned if they try to get Gino a couple of bombs here early to get him going in this game and get Shenango off rhythm.
The other game going on in the Big Seven, Laurel traveling to take on the Flames down at Northgate. Over under on total points in that one. Another potential 60, 70 point total game is probably expected in this one.
Yeah, they're next. just next. I'm sorry. Laurel will not be threatening this game at all. It might look a little bit closer when it's over because Northgate's been padding stats down the stretch, but this is not ending well for Northgate on Friday.
Yeah, contain the quarterback early. That's basically the key against Northgate, and you'll end up being okay. A really talented quarterback. Wish, honestly, that he had a few more weapons to work with around him down there. But I'm going to see this too. Will Laurel get another defensive score for the 6th straight game? I'm going to say they will. They'll find a way to make that one happen. Bumping up to Class 2A, Elwood City is going to travel to New Brighton. Elwood City, I can't believe we're going to say this, but they have a great chance to start conference play at 3-0. We alluded to it earlier. Team that just keeps getting better and is doing things that very few foresaw happening.
Yeah, and what's really impressed me, and I've said this before in the last couple of weeks, what's really impressed me has been their defense. And I think their defense has really kind of been the backbone of this team, and it's allowed some of these other guys to develop and get into their roles more and feel more comfortable offensively. Listen, right now, Travis Smiley, you could make the case, is one of the best quarterbacks that we have in the area because of how he's played and what he's done for his team. He's going to be expected to do that again. This isn't an offense that wows you. They are just consistent. They get it done. They get everybody involved. They move the football. They get first downs. They get touchdowns. Simple as that. I mean, they've really put together some solid football. Starts with defense. I think defense probably controls this game for them again. And I'm not stunned if this team, James, if they go and they win out, I would not be surprised by that.
That would certainly be a huge storyline for sure. I just want to see Tyler Smiley continue to take care of the football. Certainly has improved these last 2 weeks, especially last week, 3 touchdowns, no picks in the win against Freedom. The other game in Class 2A, the one local game we have in Class 2A's MAC Conference, Union hosting Mohawk. Something's got to give. You wanted to talk about a game that you think might be, a 14-13 type game or a 20-16 type game. That's what I think we expect in this one. Defense is trying to ground it out. What offense can make a splash play?
Yeah, this is a tough game to handicap, so to speak, because on one hand, I think Union can hang around and stay in this game if they keep it low scoring. And they may be able to do that because Mohawk right now, they can't score. I mean, simple as that. Their offense is struggling. This might be a breakout game for Mohawk. This is a tough one to figure out. I need to see some of the psyche on this Mohawk team now. I think that they realize they're up against it. They realize that they really need to win every game from here on out. And they get to start that with a game against their rival. So on one hand, I like the fact that this isn't like Freedom or Riverside or somebody else. This is their arch rival. This is they're 3 miles apart, 4 miles apart. So, I mean, this is like their biggest rivalry that they have on the schedule. So they have something they can get up for. They can prepare like it's a big game. They can treat it like it's a big game. It is a huge game because they have to win. Both have to win it. I would probably say Mohawk's a little bit more advanced right now to do so, but I would have thought that last week too. And look what happened at Beaver Falls.
Yeah, and you can't take any game lightly, no matter what. That's the case in point. And if there's a game that you're going to see, maybe a Bobby Fadden breakout, or just a freshman like Monte Booker, or a freshman on the other side like Lucas Stratton, get their big. Welcome to Lawrence County football. That's what's probably going to end up happening. You're going to see somebody just have an explosion of a game. That's what it's going to take in these games, and this battle on the border especially, to be able to really Yeah, put your team up over the top and over the edge. And that's what it's going to take to get a victory. And it is a big one because the loser was almost guaranteed that they're going to be on the outside looking in. It's still very much mathematically possible. And the way the MAC looks right now, I think beyond probably the top 3 teams, I think anybody in team 4 through 8 could easily win on any given night, just the way things are starting to shake down. But as we hit the midway point, things are going to start to really become a little more crystal down the stretch, and we'll see with this big one on Friday, especially who can take it down between the Warriors and the Scotties. No 8-game preview, thankfully, because we have county teams playing against each other. But that's the roundup coming for this Friday, the 26th, in the county matchups, that is. We want to look real quick, though, before we wrap things up, Eric, across the state, no real movers or shakers, really, but what are some of the things that you're looking forward to in terms of keeping your eye on big matchups maybe in the next couple of weeks?
Well, Avonworth is now the number 1 team in 3A, and I think that's just deserved because they're maybe the best team in the WPIL right now. I mean, they've practically shaken up all of 4A, and not much has changed really in single A. Not much has changed really a lot in double A for the most part. 5A, it's the same teams that are hanging around. 6A, it's the same teams that are hanging around. St. Joe's Prep got a big win over the weekend to finally get one in the win column there. So they still have a lot in front of them. They have a big stretch coming up themselves, but not too much in terms of, it's been a very stagnant, for the most part, season. Some movement in 3 and some movement in 4, and some of that's going to sort itself out here the next couple of weeks, but it's actually been pretty sedentary here for the most part.
Well, it's going to amp up here, especially in Lawrence County over the next 5 weeks. Again, big games the last 3 weeks that are likely going to decide all conference championships. Big ones, though, this week that are going to help play into that as well. Eric will be heading out to Shenango High School, joined with Lee Moan to take on that Neshannock and Shenango game. I'll be up with the crew in District 10 for the Wilmington and Farrell game. We'll have all those updates. Tweety Bird getting all the score updates going across the bottom line throughout the course of Friday night. Make sure you tune in for the recap show on Trib Live after every Friday night game. And, of course, our Friday night highlights show going out every Sunday as well. Eric, one final thought before we get out of here. Penn State, Oregon. What are we seeing?
Everybody wants to point to Oregon being in that environment for the first time. I don't think it's going to phase them. I don't think they care. Some people are pointing to the last time that Jim Knowles played Oregon, what they did to him in the Rose Bowl when he was a defensive coordinator at Ohio State. I don't think that matters at all. I think what matters is that Oregon is the better football team right now. We have not seen anywhere near the style of offense we thought we might see with Penn State this year. I think their defense has been okay. I don't think it's been great. I don't think their schedule has prepared them for what's coming into Happy Valley, and I think this is a terrible matchup for them this early in the year. If this game were, say, like the middle of October, I probably would lean Penn State. James, this was a 6.5-point line at the beginning of the year in favor of Penn State. And you got to be out of your mind to put them as a 6.5-point favorite at any point during the season, considering the fact they played 3 junior varsity teams to start the year. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That schedule does nothing to prepare. And you can say Oregon's didn't either, but at least Oregon played a rivalry game with Oregon State. At least Oregon played another Power 5 school in Oklahoma State, and they have destroyed these teams. They are going to walk into whatever it's called anymore, West Shore Home Stadium or whatever it's called, and it's Beaver Stadium. It's no naming rights ever going to change that. I don't care how much money BJ Wersen has, but they're gonna walk in there and they're gonna come out. I think they win pretty comfortably. Actually, Oregon does.
Well, for every reason that you just said, I hope you are absolutely wrong as a Penn State fan, but I can't deny literally anything that you said right there. But that's why you play the game.
That's right. That's right. And something has to be said. I mean, Jim Knowles isn't going to just like throw out that Rose Bowl performance. I mean, this is why he was hired at Penn State. This is why he's the highest paid assistant coach in college football. I mean, they brought him in there specifically for 2 games, his former employer and this one right here. And if they get by both, the Big Ten championship game, and if they get through that, the playoff. Simple as that. It's his contract is basically to win, 6 games. And it's the two main ones in the regular season, and it's the Big Ten title game if they get there, and it's the playoff if they get there too. And the other funny thing about this is Penn State's schedule next year is not that good. So everybody wants to talk about what's going to happen after Aller leaves and Singleton leaves and Katron Allen leaves and these guys, and they got to rebuild the receiving core and stuff. If you look at their schedule next year, no Ohio State on it, no Oregon on it. It's backloaded with some of the lower echelon Big Ten teams. USC comes to Happy Valley, so they get another West Coast team that makes the cross-country trip. This is actually setting up very nicely for them to have a nice little 3-year run if you count last year too. So I don't know that everything necessarily matters long term in this game, but it's certainly one that they need to win to validate themselves. I just do not see them doing it. I think Oregon is a vastly better football team. I think the two best teams in the country at this exact moment, if you want to throw Ohio State in there, I'll say 3. I think Miami should be number 1. I think Ohio State's up there, and I think Oregon's up there, and I think everybody else is kind of scratching and clawing for what's behind that.
Man, I almost would have preferred it to be a noon kickoff, a big noon kickoff when you have a West Coast team having to come across. But
and don't forget too, they have to go right back out to the West Coast in a couple weeks too. Penn State does. So this is not like the easiest. I mean, they get if they get a big win on Saturday, I think it's Northwestern next, and then they have to go to UCLA after that. So they're going right out to the West Coast in 2 weeks, and there's definitely a trap spot with Northwestern. Northwestern isn't that good, but there's definitely a trap game in there if they're able to beat Oregon and, kind of try to keep that momentum going. This team right now is just, they're very hard to trust. They really are very hard to trust. And I'm sorry, I'm not a Drew Aller fan. I don't buy the hype with him at the next level. He's going to be a rich man. He's going to get drafted very high. He might be the first or second quarterback taken. I would probably lean towards Lenora Sellers or, if Arch Manning does come out, I still think he is a little bit better than Aller, but I'm not on board with him as my big game quarterback right now. The wrong quarterback is playing in Penn State. The starter is the one that's in Missouri right now, Bo Prabula.
Yep, you're right in the mindset with many Penn State fans, and again, I hope that all changes in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and that's easy to say when you look at what Prabula's done the first quarter of the season, what Aller's done the first quarter of the season. I was saying that last year, though, too. Bo Prabula, to me, I mean, I've been a fan of his since I saw him as a freshman. So his brother was a hell of a quarterback, too, who went to Delaware. And I've thought all along he's the better of the two because he's mobile. He can throw on the run. They can do a lot of gimmicky stuff with him like we saw last year. But I just think he's better suited for the style of offense Penn State wants to play. There's a reason why their offense wasn't as good with Sean Clifford as it was with Trace McSorley, because McSorley was phenomenal as a two-way, as a dual threat. And that's what Bo Prabula brings. And if they had him, that might sway me a little bit. I'm not on the Aller bus right now.
I still think if you had Bo last year at Penn State, that using him as a gadget and gimmick, I think they probably beat Notre Dame and make it to the championship even. Would not have surprised me there.
Wouldn't have surprised me either.
And that's coming from the Notre Dame fan over there on the other side of this computer screen. Well, there you go. A little college football talk as well. We'll sprinkle in some fun little tidbits like that over the rest of the year as well. Big thanks, Eric Thomas, for joining us. Thank you for joining us here live or archived as well, whether it's on YouTube, Facebook Live, Twitter, anywhere that you get your podcasts. It's Beyond the Scoreboard. We'll see you for the band festival, and then we'll see you on Friday night for more football action